Hello, hello, how are you? Welcome, I'm glad you're here. Today we are making rosemary flatbread. And I just want to point out this is a low carb recipe. So if you have prediabetes and you're concerned about your A1C level, this recipe is for you. Why? Only 3 net grams of carbs. The whole recipe has 9 grams of carb, but the net carbs is 3. So you're good if you are wanting to reduce your A1C level. Okay, so let's get at it. This is super quick, super easy to make. So we have all of our ingredients. I've listed those in the comments. The first thing though is the almond flour and the coconut flour. So 7/8, that's a little bit odd. So what I like to do first is put in the 2 tablespoons of the coconut flour, and then you can just fill up the rest of your measuring cup with the almond flour. So why use both? The coconut flour is a little bit sweeter, so it just, adds a little bit of flavor. So I've got 1 and 2. So we've got the 2 tablespoons of the coconut flour. I'm just gonna move that out of the way so I don't knock it over, which I actually did earlier when I was setting up the kitchen, but it was closed, so no damage there. And so now I'm just gonna pour in and fill this up to the 1 cup measuring, to the top of the measuring cup. And then we'll have our full 7/8 plus a cup. So there you are. It's baking. I know you're supposed to be really exact, but I'm not super exact, but I'm pretty close. All right, next we have, as you see, basically we're going to put all the ingredients in together and we're going to use a food processor. I like to use this little immersion blender because it's simple and just why not? So we're just going to give that a try. Let's see. So if you don't have, my point is if you don't have a food processor, you're fine. You could probably even use a hand mixer. The challenge is the dough is going to start to get a little thick, and that may be a little bit harder for you to actually manipulate with your wrist or your hand. Okay, so we've got the flour in. I like to put all my dry ingredients in first and then add the wet. So the recipe, as you see, calls for some rosemary. You could also use oregano if that's your thing, and also some basil for a different kind of flavor. But I just love rosemary, so I just got this off of the tree out in the yard. So I'm just gonna use that. Okay, so it's calls for. Let me just double check here. 3/8 of a teaspoon. So really, that's just a quarter plus a little bit more. And so I just have some here in my hand. That's about a quarter of a teaspoon. This here is a half a teaspoon. You can see that kind of fills it up, but it's not all, and I really like rosemary. So what I am gonna do is scrunch this up a little bit and try to break it up so it's in smaller pieces, and that also helps to release the flavor. So you could actually chop this on your cutting board and break it up even more, but I'm just gonna leave it a little bit whole, but as I said, just crinkling it in there so that it does release that flavor. And it smells so good. I love rosemary. Okay, so next we have a quarter teaspoon of our baking powder. And so I have that right here. And again, I can't find my quarter teaspoon, so I'm just gonna use half of the half. So where did it go? Here it is. All right, so I'm just gonna use half of the half. Very simple. Put that in. And next we have some garlic powder. So garlic powder and rosemary, as you know, gives a really nice combination. So I just picked up at the store last night, so let's get rid of that paper. Same thing, we're going with a quarter of a teaspoon, so we're just gonna dip in half of that. And the brand doesn't matter, and again, I'm using garlic powder and not salt. The recipe does call for salt, but I don't cook with salt. So if it calls for salt, I just skip right over it, and I have never had a problem. So that's up to you. But again, if you're concerned about your A1C level and just generally trying to get healthy, I would encourage you to leave off the salt as well. All right, so that's it for that. And then we have our egg whites. I just buy them in the carton. Again, the brand doesn't matter, but this is what I have today is Bob Evans. So whatever brand is available at your store is great. So this is a quarter of a cup is the requirement, or if you're gonna use fresh eggs, that's fine. It's just gonna be 3 eggs. So we've got a quarter of a cup of that plus 2 tablespoons. So my tablespoon guy is right here. Put that in. And I mean, if you've never seen liquid egg whites, it just, nothing fancy. There you go. So put that in there, and I'm just gonna give that a little bit of a stir, just so you can see that it is starting to thicken already. And we're just gonna wipe that off of there, and I'm gonna pop on my blender here and get it combined. Okay, so how about you? Have you ever tried making anything like this before? Just drop a note in the comments. You know, maybe you've made bread. I know I used to make yeast rolls with my mama, and that was always really delicious. But this is going to be really good. It already smells so good. So I've got that all combined, and let's see, just a little sticky. So it's kind of gotten caught under here in the blade. So kids, don't do this at home because you don't want to cut your fingers, but I am being careful, so it's gonna be fine, All right, so we're gonna get all of that out of there, and then what we're gonna do is get some parchment paper, and we're gonna want to roll this out on the parchment paper so that we can make two sections. Oh, I smell that garlic in there too. It smells so good. Okay, what are some herbs that you like? And again, this is something that you can customize to yourself. As I've already mentioned, you can use basil and oregano. You can also, as I'm doing, substitute and use rosemary. Italian seasoning is another one that's really good. These are the pre-cut sheets, so there we go, already done. So that's that. And let's see, well, I don't know if we're still in frame. Why don't I move that over there, and I'll pull the parchment paper in here so you can see that. And I'm just gonna go in here, grab out, I'm just in the bowl now, just grabbing out the dough and just getting the last little bits. And it's a little bit mushy, but you can see how it's, you know, it's more moist than Play-Doh. It's not like super dry like a pie crust. So just get all of that out of the bowl and right onto your parchment paper. So you'll see in the instructions that you want to break this into two pieces, or, you know, separate it into two balls. To the extent that you can make it even, that would be great. And just gonna spread this out. In the instructions, it does say to put another piece of parchment paper on top of this. And we're just going to give this a little bit of a smash, just a little bit of a smash, and then grab another sheet of parchment paper, and then I'm going to move this one over just a little bit so that when we do the rolling, you know, if you have a rolling pin, you can use a rolling pin. I didn't get the rolling pin out before we started, so I'm just going to smash. And you just want it to be nice and thin, just like you would for, you know, for some flatbread. So what I can do, if we're just going to get scrappy, I'm just going to use this little jar of baking powder and roll this out. So again, nothing fancy, doesn't have to be exact. What we're going for is flavor and low carb. So, you know, what's going to be really good on this, I'm going to be making some guacamole here in a little bit. And one of the things that you can do is use this for your guacamole as well. So, yeah, I think that is it. So I'm going to put this in the oven, and I'll come back later with some pictures. I'm just smoothing this out, smoothing. And then I'll just give you a little peek in there of what it looks like. There you go, and it's got a little thin in a couple places. That's just from the ridge on the top of the baking powder. Again, not a problem. We don't need perfection. So there you have it, rosemary flatbread. I'll come back later and show you the final product. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.